This is going to be over long division of polynomials, and it's a little bit harder concept to get, but we are going to try to get through it. If you need to watch the video a couple of times in order to get it, then that's great. If not, you know to make sure that you ask any questions out on Slack of how to do it. But before we get started, I just want to review in general long division. So remember, if you've got a number like 2,694 and we're dividing it by 14, we put the first number in the box and then we're dividing by 14. And we say 14 won't go into 2, so we go to the next number. So 14 into 26. So that's division. We're dividing that. Well, it will only go in there one time. So then we multiply. So here are our steps. We multiply 1 times 14, right? And we put that there. Then we do the subtraction. We see what's left. So 26 minus the 14 is 12. Then you continue to bring down the next number, and we'll complete that process over and over again until you finally run out of numbers. Well, then that will go in there 9 times. So 14 times the 9 is 126, leaving us with 3. Bring down your next number, etc., etc. So remember, that's just how we do long division. But now we're going to do long division of polynomials, okay? So it's going to be a little bit trickier to do these, but the basic concept is still the same. So before we get started, we have our joke of the day. What happens when you put a root beer in a square glass? It just becomes beer. Get it? Roots and squares. Haha. Okay, so long division. Some things that we have to remember is that we have to arrange those terms in descending power order. So, and if there are any missing, we've got to create zeros for them. So, for example, if we have something that's like 3x cubed plus 7x minus 10. Well, notice if we're going in descending powers, we're missing an x squared term. So we would want to rewrite that and say, well, we still have 3x squareds, but we have 3x cubes, but we have 0x squareds plus 7x minus 10. So we're not changing that equation because anything times 0 is still just going to be 0, but we've got to put it in there for our division's sake because we will end up with those terms, okay? And then all we're doing when we do long division is we're just trying to match those first terms to make them become 0. And then, just like before, we would multiply, subtract, and bring down the next term. So let's do an example. All right, so we have x squared plus 14x plus 45. And we are dividing that by x plus 9. And basically what they're asking is x plus 9 a factor of that x squared plus 14x plus 45? And if we have no remainder, then it means that it is. Okay, so like I said, we're trying to just match these first terms. We don't care what this x plus 9 is. All we care about is that that's an x. And we want to make it match the first term here. Well, how is x squared going to become x? Or how is x going to become x squared? Well, it's just like we divide. How many times will it go in there? Well, we need another x to make that an x squared. So x squared divided by x is x. So we're going to put this x up here. Then remember, you multiply. Well, we've got to multiply it times the x plus 9. So x times x is x squared, and x times 9 is 9x. Then our next step was to subtract. Well, we're subtracting an entire polynomial that we created down here. So we've got to go change all the signs of what we created. So you're going to hear me say, change the signs, then draw your line. So change your signs, draw your line. Don't just try to get that in that order. Keep saying that in your head and you won't forget. Okay, so then that should always create that first term should be 0. So notice our x squared plus or minus the x squared gives us 0x squareds. So then we're just stuck with this 14x and a negative 9x, which gives us 5x. And then we bring down the next term, plus 45. Well, how is this x going to become a 5x? Well, we can come over here to the side and we can divide. Just a regular monomial. 5x divided by x leaves us with just 5. So that's what we need up here, plus 5. And then we multiply 5 times the x plus 9. So 5x plus 45. And then what do we say all together? Change our signs, draw the line. Well, that leaves us with a remainder of 0. So notice that our 5x's, both of those, we've got a positive and negative, so that makes 0. We have a positive and negative 45, that also makes 0. So we don't have a remainder, so this is your final answer. So our next example, just notice that it is not in descending power order. So we're going to have to put it in descending power order so that we can multiply. So just watch the signs, carry the sign that's in front of the number along with it. All right, so our first term would be 8x squared. We have a positive 6x and we have a negative 12. So notice I just took this term and put it in descending power order. The x squared is first, then the x, then your constant. Then we are dividing by 2x plus 3. And again, all we care about is making this 2x match that 8x squared. So we can come over here on the side if we need to. 8x squared divided by 2x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. X squared divided by the x is x. So we're going to need to multiply that by 4x. So we get 4x times the 2x plus 3. That gives us 8x squared plus 12x. And we change our signs before we draw our line. That gives us a negative 6x. Bring down the next term, minus 12. So then we're thinking, how can this negative 6x divided by the 2x, what do we need? Or 2x times what makes negative 6x? Well, we know it needs to be negative, and it looks like just a 3. So minus 3. And then when we multiply, we've got to make sure we're multiplying by that negative 3 because that's what we put up there, 2x plus 3. That gives us negative 6x minus 9. So then we come in, change our signs before we draw the line. Then this one did not come out to be 0. We have negative 3 left over. Okay, so this is a remainder. And the remainder is always goes over whatever you're multiplying by or dividing by. I can't talk today for some reason. So we're going to say take this number minus 3 over our divisor, 2x plus 3. So you see where we got that? This is our remainder, so he goes up here on top out of this term. And that is your final answer. All right, looks like we're going to do a couple more examples. If you want to try to stop your video and work these out on your own and then come back and check. Remember on this one, you're going to need to fill in those zeros. I'll get it set up for you and then try to work it on your own. So that's x cubed. We have 0x squared. 0 x's minus 1. Okay, so I'm just going to work it. X squared times the x minus 1. That leaves me with an x squared plus bring down the next term. Well, we've got x squared divided by our x. Because remember, all we care about is matching this to these first terms here. All right, so that is plus x. So x times the x minus 1, x squared minus x. Change my signs, draw my line. That leaves me with x minus 1. And how is x? X, 1. So we've got to do the plus 1. So 1 times x minus 1, because we had to fill in this spot here. So that's just x minus 1. Change my signs, draw my line, and looks like we are going to have a remainder of 0. So there is that answer. Hopefully you got that when you worked that out on your own. Okay, let's do another one here. Two x to the 4th plus 3x cubed. We're missing an x squared. So notice there's an x squared, so we've got to put the 0 in there. Minus 7x minus 10. Okay, that looks like a long one. So 2x to the 4th, trying to match these terms, leaves us with 2x squared. Multiply. So that's 2x to the 4th minus 4x cubed. Change our signs, draw the line. That leaves us with 7x cubed, bringing down the next term. So then we have the 7x cubed, x squared. Trying to match those is 7x. So then we multiply. That's a bad 7. 7x cubed minus 14x squared. Change our signs, draw the line. We get 14x squared, bringing down the next term. And so that is 14x squared divided by the x squared is just 14. So 14 times x squared minus 2x is 14x squared minus 28x. Change the signs. Whoops, that's supposed to be in pink. Change the signs. Draw your line. So that gives us 21x minus 10. Well, notice that there's no way this x squared is going to become a 21x. So then that's as far as we can go. So that's our remainder. And so we're going to have to list that remainder as 21x minus 10 over what we're dividing by, x squared minus 2x. And that is your final answer. I don't know why I put that 14 in. Let's see. Let's make him orange so he matches everything. There. Okay. So hopefully you got those right. Hopefully you're getting the hang of that long division. Now there is a different way that we can also divide, and that is called synthetic division. And synthetic division is a little bit shorter than our long division. The only problem with it is that you have to be dividing by something in the form of x minus c. There can be no number in front of that x. It has to just be a 1. So if you're dividing by 2x plus 3 or 4x minus 5 or anything like that, you cannot use synthetic division without getting rid of whatever numbers in front of that x. It has to be in this format. So just looking at this, we're dividing by x plus 2. Well, if it's in that format of x minus c, what is c? Well, c would have to be negative 2, because that would be x minus negative 2, right? So that makes x plus 2. So you notice how the c is always sort of going to be whatever that opposite sign is. So we're going to divide by negative 2. So we're going to put this negative 2 out on the outside. Then the only thing we're going to do is list the coefficients. So notice we're also missing an x squared here. So the coefficient in front of my x cubed is a 1. The coefficient in front of my x squared is a 0. This coefficient is a negative 7, and then we have negative 6 here. So we're just going to list all those. So 1 for the x cubed, 0 for that x squared, negative 7 for the x, and negative 6 for our constant. And that's all we're going to do. We don't care about those x's yet, okay? So first thing you do on synthetic division is bring down the first number. So it's 1. Then you multiply this 1 times whatever you're dividing by. So this is 1 times that negative 2. Well, that's negative 2. Then you add. So 0 plus that negative 2 is negative 2. Then we multiply by this negative 2 again. So times the negative 2, that makes positive 4. Negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3. Multiplying by the negative 2 again. So negative 2 times the negative 3 makes positive 6. Add those together, and there you have a remainder of 0, or that comes out even to be 0. Okay, so how do you write this answer? It's a nice, easy way. It's a little bit less confusing than all the doing the other long division, but we've got to then turn around and write our number, where we're always going to take this highest power. Well, if the highest power was an x cubed, then it's always a 1 less because we've divided out an x plus 1. So you see we've divided out one of those x's. So we're going to start with always 1 less. So we're going to start with an x squared term and then just go down the line. So that's an x term. This is going to be our constant term. And then this will be a remainder if we had one. So we will write that answer as, I'm going to come write it all over here, x squared, because there's a 1 in front of that, minus 2x minus 3. And so hopefully you see where we got all those. I just took this information here, writing them with the coefficients in front of them. Okay, so let's try another one. Let's see. So we've got an x cubed, an x squared, an x, and a constant. So we're not missing any in this one. So look at this. If we're dividing by x minus 2, what is our c term? Which should be the positive 2. So we're going to put the 2 on the outside because that's what we're dividing by, and then we're going to list all those coefficients again. So we've got the 5 that's in front of the x cubed. We've got the negative 6 that's in front of the x squared. We have the 3 that's in front of the x, and a positive 11 that's our constant. All right, so again, bring down the first term. 5. 5 times 2, 10. Negative 6 plus 10 is 4. The 2 times the 4 is 8. 8, the 3 plus the 8 is 11. The 2 times 11 is 22. So just notice we're putting this times 2, adding, then times the 2, because that's what's on the outside, So we've got 33 left over here as a remainder. All right, so again, we started with the x cubed term, so this has to be an x squared term. So x squared, x constant, and then a remainder. So we write that answer as 5x squareds plus 4x positive 11 plus our remainder 33 over what we're dividing by, this x minus 2. Final answer. Okay, hopefully you will get that. It won't be too bad if you need to watch the video again. I'm going to tell you another joke because that lesson's pretty intense. So, all right, here you go. What do you get if you divide the circumference of a jack-o'-lantern by its diameter? Pumpkin pie. Enjoy your homework, guys.